Hi everybody joining. This is our live Q&A series. So we do this every week, and today's guest is Madison Toonder. So I'm just adding her in now, and hopefully.
Fingers crossed it's loading. Hiya,
Hi.
can you hear me okay?
I can. Can you hear me?
Awesome, yeah, I can hear you perfectly.
Wonderful.
Just a heads up before we get started, the internet has been super dodgy today, so if this cuts out, then I'll just restart the live and then you can just rejoin.
Okay.
And also, the electricity has been bad. So if my screen goes dark, then it'll just be because I've got a power cut and I've got a head torch, which I'll chuck on.
Sounds good.
But I'll
No
still be here
worries.
talking.
Okay.
So I'm doing this from Mozambique, which is why there's the potential for so many hiccups. But where are you talking to us from?
I'm in Nashville currently on campus at
Oh, nice.
Vanderbilt,
Okay.
which is fun. Very, very nice out today, like 65, sunny.
Yeah, it looks really nice. Nice green background.
Yeah, that would be nice to,
Um,
to chat outside today.
yeah, definitely. And for people tuning in, do you want to just introduce yourself and what you do, who you are, all of that kind of stuff?
Y- Yeah, for sure. So I'm Maddie. I'm an environmental advocate with a focus on conservation of wildlife through comparative research and education primarily. So right now I'm a student at Vanderbilt University. I'm majoring in ecology, evolution, and organismal biology on a pre-veterinary track. And when I'm not doing schoolwork, I'm really involved in organizations like Ocean Heroes Boot Camp. I work as a leatherback sea turtle technician during nesting season in Juno Beach, which is one of the most densely populated sea turtle beaches in the world during nesting season. And starting in early high school, continuing to now, I've kind of developed my network. I've developed research projects ranging from sea turtle alligator comparative immunology to looking at the effect of sunscreen on oyster populations. And at the moment, I'm working on my research analysis primarily.
Wow, that's super cool. Okay, so for people just tuning in now who might not know what Love the Oceans is, so just a quick intro to what we do. So we're a marine conservation organisation. We're based in Mozambique, and our mission is to establish a marine protected area here. So we do lots of different areas of research. We do fisheries, humpback whales, coral reefs, ocean trash, marine megafauna, turtles. Then we do 2 community outreach projects as well, teaching basic marine resource management and swimming lessons, and also have a alternative livelihood section of the organisation too. So we do a lot of different areas, but because of COVID, obviously things have changed quite considerably this year, and we haven't been able to do any of our community outreach because you're not allowed gatherings of people, and we haven't been able to do our research because we can't launch the boat. So we started this Q&A series to invite cool guests on, like yourself, to talk about all different conservation issues, and also like you and your career and your path. And we get a lot of people tuning in that are like interested in this field and like getting into it. So for people tuning in now, if you have any questions for Maddie, then just drop them in the comment box down at the bottom. There is also a question box too. But for some reason, I found that question box only gives you like the first 2 lines of the question. So if you drop the question in there, make sure it's brief, so that we can see the whole thing. But we'll try and get to all of the questions that you guys submit now throughout the live as we go as well. And then we've also had a bunch of pre-submitted questions. So if you're cool with it, should we jump into the questions that have been sent in?
Yeah, that sounds great. I'm excited.
Okay, cool. So the first one, gentle introduction to it. Where does your love of ecology stem from? Like, how did you get into what you do at the moment? Like, what was that path? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, so I grew up on a barrier island just off the coast of Florida, so St. Augustine. And just living by the ocean for most of my life, I gained an appreciation of the local ecosystem, and an understanding of marine science, I think, was instilled in me at a young age. And with that came just witnessing firsthand the direct effects of pollution on our environment that sometimes those from landlocked locations don't necessarily get to witness. And so that kind of led me to my current role in outreach efforts with a focus on conservation of endangered species. And even though I had this passion for the ocean, I was able to channel it once I realized the value of research. And it started from a required middle school science project on air filters to realizing I can use these scientific questions to do exactly what I want to do. And that led to kind of working my way up the food chain from oysters at a regional estuary to what I'm doing now with the sea turtles.
Was it always sea turtles for you then? Was that what you wanted to do, or was that just kind of a love that developed over time? Or
that was definitely a love that developed. From when I was younger, I wasn't obsessed only with sea turtles. I loved all wildlife and was just really excited when I got to go to, wildlife sanctuaries and learn about the work they're doing. And I kind of fell into doing sea turtle work a little bit, and just with my interest in comparative studies, interdisciplinary focuses. I initially was looking at immunology, and sea turtles have a really interesting immune system relating to alligator immune systems and the evolution with that. And so I started doing work with that, and I was really interested with the challenge of getting permitting to work with sea turtles. So once I made the decision I wanted to work with them, I was like, all right, I'm stuck with them now. It's going to take me a year to get permitting, and once I get it, I don't want to stop. I want to be with them.
Yeah, so you made the commitment, had to choose to just run with it.
Yeah, and I love it.
Yeah. I mean, I had a similar thing. I originally, my obsession was sharks, and now it's moved way more general into fisheries and coral reefs to an extent, and but more teleos fish and not necessarily elasmobranchs at all. So I think your love for the environment doesn't have to be restricted to one species focus. It can be such a broad, especially over a whole career as well, interests change. And for us,
Absolutely.
obviously NGO work, it all depends on what's needed and kind of go where you're required to go, really. So yeah, but when we're talking about the sea turtles, what's your research with them? You mentioned immunology. What has your research consisted of with the sea turtles?
Yeah, so a major project I've been collaborating on over the past few years is just looking at the overall health of green sea turtles in relation to the severity of fibropapillomatosis, which is a long word I like to throw out there. But it's basically a debilitating virus with little known cures that causes large internal and external tumors, and it's just thought to be connected to environmental health, because it's been increasing in prevalence as global health decreases, and not much is known about it and our role in impacting the prevalence of that disease. And so with that big curing turtle cancer concept in mind, I was collaborating with some researchers just to understand green turtles, because there are very few publications that have explored the implications of adapting the novel human technology we have to analyze animal samples in a veterinary lab. Reference intervals for green sea turtles specifically have not been established like they have for humans and other general practice cat and dog species. And so there's a lot of information to be learned. So we're starting with getting a bunch of normal, abnormal samples and analyzing them in different ways to have an idea of what's going on.
That's pretty cool. So is that because you published a paper last year, was it last year or maybe 2 years ago?
Yeah.
On sea turtles, was that what that was about?
Yes. So that was mostly looking at turtle species in relation to their blood protein fractions, and using this new human technique called capillary electrophoresis to separate out their blood in a different way, so that maybe we could get a new perspective on what's going on in their blood and how the different peaks and valleys show their health in a way that we wouldn't necessarily expect. So it was just trying to establish reference intervals on that side.
Did it work? Like, did you find that it was a useful methodology?
Yeah, it was a really great first step in understanding like there might be a few more protein fractions that exist in turtle blood. Like there's some things we can't quite define and haven't defined yet. And so it raised a lot of questions about what kind of methods exist and are most common. And then also the question of access, like what labs have access to what technology, and how can that affect regional knowledge of the turtle species. And so going from there with the data we got, we're going to try to explore and see how we can apply that in different labs.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Like, I feel like with biology really, like science generally as well, but when we're talking about like marine species, a lot of people think like the like more popular species like turtles or sharks or dolphins and things like that, people think that they're so researched. Even with like things like whale sharks, people see these like beautiful animals and assume that they're like really well researched. But I think people
Right.
forget that we know so little about the marine world. So it's like really cool to hear about new research and new methods being developed with all these different species, because it's just really needed. And it's kind of crazy that we know so much more about like our domesticated animals, like our pets, like dogs and cats, but then and with like their wild populations, like it's not
Right.
relevant for our conservation measures. Whereas when you're talking about like turtles, they play such an important ecological role that and we know so little about them versus like our domesticated animals. So it's just it's kind of nuts. So it's really awesome to hear about new research being done on these animals.
Thank you. And these conversations are so
So
critical to have. Oh, sorry, lag.
no, you go.
But an emphasis that I like to have is on interdisciplinary studies, and the concept of zoobiquity, which is another one of my favorite words, which is like combining human and animal studies. And I don't think many people fully understand how significant it is to compare between species and like connect human understanding to animal understanding, just because not only like there's this ecological connection, but then also like a biological connection, and so much information we could gain from that. But love throwing zoobiquity out there, at least early on, the first 10 minutes I have to.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, and then someone actually sent a question in about like your kind of career progression, I guess, around like internships and volunteering and stuff. You said that you work as a sea turtle technician. Is that like a voluntary project, or is that like a job that you then like did some internships to get to, kind of thing? What was your path in terms of your career?
Yeah, so I feel like I'm still a child now, but when I was especially young, a lot of the way that I established my network was through reaching out to local mentors. And so it started out with me emailing a local estuary with my like resume for middle school, which was like student government and in like honor roll, interested in getting involved in some of their oyster projects. And then from there, I could spend some time as a volunteer analyzing data, helping collect data, and then eventually conducting my own independent research there. And then through those connections, I found my way to Brevard Zoo, where I volunteered for 4 years as an animal handler and docent. So I was exposed to ball pythons, all different kinds of snakes and birds, which is just so fun to handle on a daily basis, and really expanded my mindset. And that started as a volunteer position. And then from there, I could connect my research knowledge into speaking at some of their different education events, meeting more cool people, and then just offering myself out there as just a communicator. And then with my current internship at Loggerhead Marine Life Center, I'm working as a sea turtle technician, which started out as just me saying, I'm free this summer and I would love to do work with turtles. I already have permitting, and I collaborate with one of their head research directors. And so I was hoping I could just pop in and see what they're doing. And then it ended up just taking more shape as a paid internship so that I can, be more active in that role. And then from there, I'm hoping to get more on the veterinary side, whether it's through being a technician or continuing my research here on campus.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. I think well, with any industry, right, it doesn't really matter what industry you're talking about, and like internships and volunteering your time is so important to be able to build the CV and build experience and all of that kind of jazz too. So yeah, kudos for doing so much so young.
Thank you.
And you say 19, but I started Love the Oceans when I was 21, so you're
Oh, that's
19 at the
awesome.
moment, right?
I am, yes. Yeah,
Yeah. So never too young.
absolutely not. Yeah,
So
21. That's awesome.
yeah. I mean, I think you probably experienced just a little bit of a struggle sometimes being a youngster talking to adults about
Oh, yeah.
conservation issues. But it means you got more time, right? So you can do a lot more. And
Right.
I think youngsters are generally really forward thinking and open-minded. Not
Absolutely.
saying that old people are not at all, but it's I like working with we have a very young team and we're all pretty agile, and it enables you to like pivot to new best practices and all of that kind of stuff. If there's a new way to research something or a new like methodology that could be tried out, then you've got that kind of flexibility to turn around and do it.
Yeah,
So yeah, I mean, never too young to get involved in this stuff and make a difference. So yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. So talking about young people and youth advocacy, the next question was about that and like your role with youth advocacy and what that has involved over the years for you.
Yeah, for sure. So I think my role as a youth advocate began to take shape when I was taking my research seriously and realized that I, as a young person, could find a role within this daunting research field full of PhDs and grad students. And so from there, I attempted to break into the space where I felt like there needed to be more youth voices out there, because, I've been rejected so many times. And that's fine. That's how it works, whether you're an adult or a young person. But sometimes I wasn't taken seriously and I felt I was at a disadvantage because of my age. Um, and while that is fair and that usually you look for experience when you're, taking on an employee, I think that mentorship should be a larger role when it comes to how adults in this field perceive young people who are eager to get involved. Because we truly are the future of our planet, and there's so many passionate people out there who, given the opportunity, could really make a difference. And so I kind of became familiar with this disconnect between high level research and then accessible education as well. And so across those lines, I was really passionate about breaking down and communicating these intimidating scientific terms in a way that people can understand as it applies to their daily life. And so with that, I think my youth advocacy took shape through finding opportunities, meeting people who were familiar with my research and saying, I'm 16 and, you think I'm pretty cool. What about all these other 16-year-olds that are like doing the same thing, but they didn't send like 200 emails, or they live in the middle of a city where they don't have the same opportunities? Like those 16-year-olds are exactly the same. And so that's kind of developed through like speaking opportunities now with education, and then of course great opportunities like this to communicate with adults and young people alike to remind them that they are so capable, and collaborating with other people.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that imposter syndrome as well, like that never changes. Even my friends that like now I've got like wildlife filmmaker friends in like their 30s and they're amazing. And they still have imposter syndrome. Like I was talking to one of my friends who's like National Geographic photographer, insane photographer, and he was like criticizing his own photos and stuff. And I was like, this is nuts. Like you're amazing, and you still don't think. And I think when I was a kid, I thought adults had it all together. And then you realize when
Yeah,
you get older that everyone is just winging it and hoping for the best.
absolutely.
And so I think that that's also important to demonstrate that to kids, because I think, yeah, you're totally right. Like this disconnect between like adults and like higher academic qualifications and things, and um, being intimidated by it, especially like when you're a youngster, and it just seems like such a like advanced thing to do. And it's only when you get older and like you're doing those qualifications or your friends are doing those qualifications, and you're like, why was I ever intimidated by this as a 16
Right.
year old? And it's so important that, because the problem is that, yeah, so the likes of me and you haven't been intimidated so much that we ducked out. Like for us, we wanted to build that connection and break it down. But for some people, they do get too intimidated, so they don't follow that path. And with the way that the world is and the state of the climate, there needs to be more and more people that are involved in this field, not less. Um, and yeah, as you said, like
Absolutely.
the future is the youngsters. So there's no point in excluding young people from conversations. And
No.
especially now, I think like you've got like media, so everything's within reach, right? Like everyone has a phone and everyone can Google. And I think sometimes I've spoken to parents that are the parents to like, 14, 15-year-olds, and they're like, I don't want to worry my kid with climate change and all this. And I'm like, your kid knows about that stuff. Like they're well aware already.
Right.
They've seen the news, they've got Google on their phone, and it's great that people want to change the world. So the more the merrier, right?
Yeah. Oh,
So,
absolutely.
um, so yeah, youth advocacy, so important. And you mentioned earlier that you work with Ocean Heroes Boot Camp. Do you want to just talk like
Yes.
what is that, and like just talk a little bit about that?
For sure. So for those of you who aren't familiar, it's an event and also just a community designed to empower young people who are interested in growing their network and more fully establishing themselves in environmental advocacy. Young people from all over the place create campaigns that work toward quantifiable goals and also just spreading the word for the topics that they're passionate about. I know a lot of the focus recently has been on reducing single-use plastics in our schools and communities. And so 2 years ago, it was, or in the years past as well, it's been in person. But with the pandemic, we switched to an online platform and have been continuing it along. But it's just a wonderful opportunity for people who have either begun to establish themselves or just really passionate about the environment to get a feasible plan in place to get started.
Nice. So is the event that you mentioned, event, is that like a week-long event, or is that just a day, or how does that work?
Yeah, so in the past, it's been maybe 4 days, a little shorter than a week. The year I went, it was in Vancouver. Really wonderful in terms of accessibility, where students had the opportunity to apply for funding to attend. A really strong presence of people from all over the place who just wanted to meet other passionate people, because I think sometimes we're so used to being the only young person in the room that it can feel isolating. And then when you bring all those voices together, it's just really empowering to meet motivated youth and just mutually affirm for each other that we're not alone in this fight against environmental injustice. Over those 4 days, I met people that I'm still in touch with now. We just collaborated. It was like a think tank. Got to speak to different leaders who were present, and travel a little bit around the area, be by the ocean, be surrounded by nature. Really great experience.
That sounds awesome. Yeah. Like I think any environmentalist can relate to Christmas dinners and trying to explain to a family why various environmental issues are an environmental issue, and really feeling like you're just fighting the corner on your own. So
Yeah.
yeah, being able to connect is really awesome. Um, and I think they actually shared this event as well. So I think people can find they have an Instagram handle, right? They have an Instagram page.
Yes.
Yeah,
Highly
so people
recommend
can
checking
find
them out.
the details. on there. Okay, cool. And then the other thing that was mentioned in your bio, which I think is why people have asked about this in particular. This question was, what is Earth Echo International Youth Leadership Council? Is Earth Echo the organisation?
Yes. Yeah. So
what is that then?
yeah, so it's an organization co-founded by Philippe Cousteau, the son of Jacques Cousteau, who I feel like is just an icon all around for marine biologists everywhere. And we're an international team of youth advocates with focuses on environmental research, education, all different backgrounds, collaborating with the purpose of developing initiatives and facilitating outreach programs with Earth Echo partners. So Earth Echo has a couple of different outlets for youth through Water Challenge program, which is like citizen science, and then also some fantastic more corporate sponsors and organizations that come in and help with events. And then as the youth council, the 15, 20 of us have monthly calls, weekly calls, working on different initiatives, which right now is the Ocean Echo 30 by 30 project, which is looking at establishing 30 marine protected areas by 2030, because as few as like 7% of our ocean is protected, which is just insane. But so topics like that really range.
That's awesome. So how do you fit all of that in with university and like your research and the work with turtles? Like that's pretty full on.
It's definitely busy, but I'm really passionate about it, so it makes it all worth it. And I think like with the like-minded people I've had a chance to meet, it's just empowering to realize I can keep making those connections if I stick with it, and continue to meet just such wonderful people. And I love every single thing that I do. So every time I take something on, it's because I enjoy it, not because it's a burden.
Yeah. I remember I started Love the Oceans while I was at university, and I always joke that I gave up sleep and a social life because it's just too busy.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, I'm the same. Like we have different areas of research that we work in, and I just geek out on each one. And I like originally when I was a kid, when I envisaged like being a marine biologist, I always envisaged like, swimming around with sharks and thinking that was like what my life was going to be. And obviously that's not how conservation really works.
Right.
Not for a lot of it. So now with each different area that we work with, like I get so excited about it, and it's so nice to be able to work in different, like slightly different areas as well, and initiatives and stuff like that. So I think you've got the same in terms of like working with different organizations and stuff. It's nice to like kind of geek out and get involved in all the different bits and bobs, especially when you're passionate about all of it. It's just like really rewarding.
Yeah, and I'm happy to be known as Sea Turtle Girl. Like that's me. I embrace it. I'm involved in volleyball and all kinds of other stuff, but Sea Turtle Girl is just like a part of my identity. From like when I crossed the stage in my high school graduation to just like now. So it's fun to have that as a part of how I identify, because it is such a strong part of me. And it's also just interesting that it gives me an opportunity to talk to people who are from landlocked states. I mean, I go to a landlocked school, and I get to share this message of marine conservation awareness and how it broadly applies to you no matter where you live, which is definitely interesting. It's a good time.
Yeah, definitely. I was known as Shark Girl. I went through my yearbook from when I left school. I went through it like last year or something. I was looking at the yearbook that everyone like wrote messages about each other and stuff in the back of, and like one of my friends wrote, it was like, what will Francesca be doing in 5 years' time? And they wrote, giving sharks a voice in society.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, I'm okay with that one. I'll take it.
Yeah.
So embrace it. It's a good part of your identity. So yeah, definitely keep that one. And then the other thing that you were involved in is Sea Youth Rise Up. And you also led World Oceans Day March and talked to a bunch of politicians. So do you want to just talk about that and like what that looked like.
Sure. So that was a great opportunity through one of the youth councils I was involved in a couple of years ago. And so I acted as a team member to work on amending environmental policies in DC as a part of World Oceans Day. And See Youth Rise Up kind of worked in conjunction with that. So I served as a delegate and just collaborated with 6 other inspiring young people, where we shared ideas to just rally our generation, mobilize our generation behind a common purpose. And so we went from different meetings brainstorming about how ocean conservation speaks to us and how we can engage other people, to leading a rally on the stage during World Oceans Day, just to get people excited about not only the environment, because that's, pretty common. I think many people there did support the environment because they were present, but then also just getting them excited about young people, like this connection between the environment and young people, and then where you are from, like you're whatever walks of life you're from. And so through that, we kind of met with the Senate Ocean Caucus as well, where my role was to cite my research and how that reflects failure in current political policy. And then we also had the honor of doing an event for thousands of young people on a global stage with a video broadcast from the Ocean Conservancy building, and then another rally on stage by the Washington Monument. And it was just a very humbling experience to get to be a part of that a couple years ago.
That's awesome. Did you find that the politicians were receptive? Like, did you like feel that things were acknowledged? Or was it more of a difficult conversation? Because sometimes politicians and environmental policies aren't the easiest combination.
Yes. In my experience during that event in particular, I felt like, my goodness, hopefully that's not too loud for you. A car starting. But my experience was pretty positive. I definitely understand the challenges that people face, especially young people face, when they're trying to convince a politician to care about something that isn't beneficial in the short term. But in that moment, I felt like I had an important role in sharing my research and talking about indisputable pieces of information that they will eventually have to accept over time as our world is affected by climate change. And so, one politician and then 6 young people doing everything from, conservation focused art to education to research, all saying the same thing. I think he had no choice but to just be open to it. We had some good conversations, and then in the year prior, they were ultimately able to make some changes in policy, which was great to see.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a good success story as well. Nice.
Yeah. Doesn't always work out like that.
Yeah. Often not with politicians, unfortunately.
No.
With your plans for like the future and stuff, what does the next 5 years look like for you down the line? Obviously, you're currently studying, right? So finishing that degree. What do you think you'll do after that? Will you continue research within turtles? Will you move elsewhere? Will you stay in America? How do you think that's going to look for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, for the next couple of years at least, I'll be getting through my undergrad, getting all the prereqs for vet school, and then applying. I see myself going to veterinary school after college, whether I take a gap year to hopefully travel and gain additional experience, depending on the effect of COVID on the state of our world, or go straight into vet school. And then, through that, I want to focus on specialize on wildlife conservation, whether it be after vet school, in rotation, or different residencies. But I'm very open to wherever my path takes me. I think it's important to, like you said, engage in what work needs to be done. And so whether I remain with the turtles right now or I transition, we'll see. And regardless, I'm excited for it. I just know I want research and education to remain a part of my identity, even after vet school. I don't want to become a veterinarian who works in a general practice without full understanding of the other elements. I really want to take that training and then apply it to the wildlife world and apply it to research.
Yeah, it's so needed as well. You can always come to Mozambique and help us with our turtles here. We've
Oh, I
got
love that.
nesting, leatherbacks and loggerheads here, and there's currently, so they do have a conservation status, and obviously it is illegal to like poach the nests and stuff. But unfortunately, there's a lot of like, yeah, the turtles nesting have not been very successful, unfortunately, because of light pollution, because of irresponsible tourism, mainly because of irresponsible tourism. And we've just launched our first turtle rescue team, which is really
Oh,
exciting.
I love
Yeah,
that.
we hadn't had the funding to do it previously. We'd always wanted to, but we didn't have the funding to do it previously. And now we've got a turtle patrol team that patrols the beaches at 3 a.m. every day, looking for
Oh, that's great.
prawns and all the rest of it. Yeah, because the leatherbacks here are critically endangered. So they're literally like one step away from being extinct. So we're really trying to preserve nests and make sure that there's a successful hatch rate as possible, because it's just they're not in
That's
a
great
good
to hear.
way in this area. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, the coastline here is just pretty well, it's unreported. So no one really knows what's going on. So we know that we've definitely had like 2 to 3 nests every year, and that's like tourists spotted them. So we've probably had other nests that have potentially been driven over or poached or whatever, dogs digging them up and eating them. So this is our first attempt to see what the actual nesting rate is here and
Interesting.
and all of that kind of stuff too. So yeah, it's going to be a really interesting year for turtles for us.
I look
Because
forward
our turtle
to hearing
season,
about the results of that.
yeah, for sure. Our turtle nesting season is November to March, so it's just
Okay.
started. So we haven't had any nests yet, but I mean that's not really. We're only like not even halfway through November, so but hopefully we'll have a couple of nests soon. That'll be really cool. And I'm back in the UK at this point, so I'm really hoping, because I'm going back to the UK in December, I really hope that we have like maybe one nest before then, so that I
Yeah,
can actually see a nest, even though it's just a patch in the sand that's disturbed. It would still be able to be cool for that, because usually it's all the other staff that handle it. So yeah, I want to sit myself,
for sure.
even though
Fingers
turtles isn't
crossed.
my specialty. Yeah. So you're always welcome to come to Mozambique and yeah, do your turtle thing
Thank
here.
you. I will definitely take you up on that when I can.
Yeah, yeah, when COVID allows. Um, cool. So the last question that we had sent through was around advice for young people looking to get into like this industry, into a similar industry. Do you have any advice for youngsters that want to get into a similar field?
Yeah, definitely. Um, Something I've learned over time is just you can't let age be a barrier to success. And even though sometimes it is, you can't let it. And my own experiences, like failure and triumphs, I've been able to take advantage of that one mentor that sent me a kind response, and then just learn as much as I can from that individual, and potentially even reapproach those who rejected me initially. And so with that and getting involved in eco activism is being persistent and remembering your value as a young person. I think we see common rhetoric of just like, we are the future, we are, young and creative. And that's all very true. But it's important to remind some of the adults in the industry that we deserve a seat at the table. And because we are the future, we have to take action now. And so, with that, it's also important to remember that we don't need fancy resources or technology to be involved in eco activism. I think when I was younger, especially, I thought there's never going to be any chance that I would be one of those people that I saw with Bindi Irwin, talking about animals, because you have to know people who know people to do that. But ultimately, like, we have social media at our fingertips. Whether you have 2 followers or like 20,000, you're still reaching a different part of the community, a different niche. And so with that, you can also gain leverage that way. But my big piece of advice is just emailing people you think are interesting. And if they don't respond, so be it. But if they do, even better, take advantage of the information they're willing to share with you, the people they know that they might be willing to connect you with, because that's got me really far in unexpected ways. Like I know
Yeah.
I sent like a last ditch email to someone who I thought was amazing. It was the director of like the International Herpetology Symposium or some group, because I was trying to get alligator blood, and I was like, hi, like I'm a 17 or 16-year-old trying to get alligator blood for my biosafety level 2 lab in high school. Haven't gotten a positive response from other people, but your research seems really interesting. My research kind of supports that. And he responded, like, him of all people, the person probably at the top of the list who I would have never reached out to start out, responded, sent me 4 separate shipments of alligator blood, and made my research possible. So there's stories like that that show you should just reach out to
That's
whoever you find
awesome.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, the satisfaction level of being rejected at first and then them coming back at a later date and being like, actually, we'd love for you to come on. Then you're
Yeah.
like, yes, now you want me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think not letting age being a barrier is so important. And the thing is it doesn't change. Like, I had a meeting yesterday where I was not respected the way that I would have liked to have been, and that was very much due to my age, and I'm 27. So it doesn't change, unfortunately. So it is just something that you've got to like work to not let it get to you too much, and just keep plodding on. So persistence is just like such a key trait, and I think that's across the board, whether that's in like eco-activism or in conservation or NGO work or anything like that, or even in other industries as well. I'd imagine persistence is just so key. And yeah, as you said, these days everyone's like just at your fingertips. Like, there's so many people available and online, and you can just message them. And sometimes, majority probably won't respond if they've got lots and lots of followers and the rest of it, or very busy lives. But those few that do can make all the difference. So, and it's utilizing those mentors. Like, you have 1 or 2 good mentors, and that can change your life. So, making sure
Absolutely.
that you connect with the right people can be a real life changer. So, so those are all the questions that were submitted beforehand. Anyone watching now, if you've got any questions that you want to ask Maddie, you can drop them in the comments box and we'll try and get to them. And in the meantime, we have some fun quickfire questions that, if you're up for it, they're just like some fun questions that we ask all of our interviewees to help us get to know you better. Okay, so first question, favorite ocean creature?
Sea turtle, but I promise I love every ocean creature. I have to though. Like,
Yeah, you gotta say sea turtle. Favorite day of the week?
Tuesday.
Nice. Haven't had that one before. Plastic free or eco product that you can't live without?
My reusable water bottle. It's basically an accessory on a college campus, but especially for me with like all my environmental stickers that cover it.
Yeah. Favorite beach in the world?
Probably my hometown beach, San Anastasia Island.
Last song you listened to?
Oh gosh. Music gets me through the day, so it could be one of hundreds. Probably Blue by John Bellion.
Nice. Dolphins or sharks?
Sharks. I think they're underrated.
Good, I agree.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Favorite holiday?
I love spending my summers in Florida back home, and by the beach, my family and friends, and now my summers are beginning to mean time with turtles during nesting season, so I love that especially as well.
Yeah, can't get much better than that. Would you rather be able to speak every language in the world or be able to speak to animals?
With my interdisciplinary background, I feel like both are essential, but I would prefer to speak to animals. That'd be pretty cool as a vet.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely as a vet. You could be like, just let me take the sample, please, just so I can tell you how
Yeah,
well you're doing afterwards, or develop this new methodology that will change all of our understanding of your population. Although I feel like if we
right.
could speak to animals, there's also be a lot of apologies involved. We'd just be like, sorry for
Yeah,
messing up your planet. We'll try and do better.
very true.
Um, as a superpower, teleportation or breathing underwater?
Breathing underwater. Absolutely.
Nice one. Would what book would you take with you onto a desert island?
Hmm. I could either go for length to keep me busy or content. I think Zubiquity by Barbara Madison Horowitz and Catherine Bowers. I love that book. I've read it cover to cover. Just the content I think presented in there is so fascinating. So Zubiquity for sure.
Um, what's the first thing you're going to do when things get back to, well, if things get back to
Oh
normal?
gosh. Um, Probably go to one of my local coffee shops without fear of coronavirus. Just I
Mm,
love I love sitting outside with my laptop, doing work, hanging out with friends. So
yeah,
it'll be nice to go back to a simpler time. But if I'm back on campus when that happens, I have a lot of friends I want to hug.
yeah, yeah, hugging people. And then last question, why do you love the oceans?
So many reasons. It gives me such a sense of peace to be by the ocean, and I believe water connects us all, whether we're on the coast or landlocked or no matter where we are in the world. Um, and because the oceans are just this omnipresent power, it has not only spiritual significance, but then also political significance, community significance, and because it transcends all of these different things, it's just so special to me. It's something more than a lot of, I can say for a lot of other parts in nature. I love all nature, but just being by the ocean, the power, the grace, like just you know, the dichotomy there is just very special to me.
Yeah, it's beautiful. They say the blue state of mind, right? It calms you
Yeah.
and helps people focus and stuff like that. So yeah, totally with you on that one. Okay, cool. So do you have any upcoming, just before we wrap up, do you have any like upcoming projects that you want to talk about or anything that like the audience should watch out for or anything like that?
Yeah, so two things I want to mention. So with Ocean Heroes Boot Camp, if you're 11 to 18, we got some awesome programs happening. The first ever regional boot camp is going to be happening in the Caribbean in early December, and registration closes for that in late November. So definitely keep an eye out for that. And then being a part of the education team with Earth Echo International, we're launching that Ocean Echo 30 by 30 project. So I would recommend checking them out at Earth Echo on Instagram, um, because we'll have some exciting social media challenges launching in the next week that we've been working on for a while. So that'll be exciting to check out for sure.
Yeah, sounds pretty awesome. Okay, cool. So thank you very much for joining us tonight. It's been great talking to you. Well,
Thank you for having
today
me.
it's your daytime. Yeah, it's been lovely talking to you. So for anyone that is watching now and perhaps missed some of this, you'll be able to watch this on our IGTV immediately afterwards, the full thing, and we'll also cross post it onto our YouTube later in the week, so you can check it out on YouTube if you want. And please do go and follow Maddie. You should be able to click your top left corner, I think, and you'll see both accounts, so you can give us both follows and keep up to date with everyone's activities and what's going on and environmental stuff, really interesting stuff. So yeah, you can follow both accounts. And yeah, I think that's it. I think that concludes the
Awesome.
session. So thanks so much for joining. And yeah, if anyone's got any questions, then you can message Maddie on Instagram,
Yeah,
or you can message us and we'll pass any questions on as well. But yeah, thank you very much for joining, and I hope you have a
great.
great day.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.
Yeah, ciao.
Bye.